there's one in my raincoat. We smoked the last one an hour ago. So I looked at the scenery. She read her magazine, and the moon rose over an open field. Kathy, I'm lost, I said, though I knew she was sleeping. I'm empty and aching, and I don't know why. Counting the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike, they've all come to look for America. All come to look for America.
Richmond, we have an exciting and inspiring group of speakers for you this afternoon. To kick us off, please welcome super volunteer Allie Croft.
Richmond! My name is Allie, and as of January, I put my life on hold to volunteer for the Bernie Sanders campaign full-time. 2 months ago, I was in Asia, working remotely and enjoying the privilege of checking out from American politics. But deep down, I knew that was the easy way out. It was easy to stay checked out, but there was so much suffering still happening back at home in the United States. I saw members of my family working over 40 hours a week for minimum wage, struggling to pay their bills, while their boss talked about buying his second vacation home. I saw friends forced to raise money online because their child has cancer and it's impossible to afford the treatment. I saw my black neighbors getting arrested for possession of marijuana while white business owners profited off the sale of cannabis. And I saw members of my community being picked up by ICE agents and physically torn away from their children in grocery store parking lots.
I'll give the next speaker RF2. I'll switch out from Bernie's mic to RF2 on the next.
Now, none of these things were happening to me personally, but many of my family and friends and neighbors don't have the luxury of checking out. So I had a choice. Do I keep living comfortably in a system of white supremacy and economic inequality, or do I fight to stop it? I made the decision to join the fight, and that meant going all in to help Bernie win the election this November. I booked a ticket from Japan to Des Moines, Iowa in the middle of January, showed up at the field office without any experience and asked, how do I knock doors? So at this point, I've knocked hundreds of doors to talk to people about Bernie, and I found kindness and compassion both within the campaign and at people's doorsteps. I connected with people about their concerns this election cycle, persuaded people who were on the fence, and helped them all make plans to get to the polls. So if you're like me, and you're also anxious about this election, please know that the only way you can feel better is to do something. And canvassing is the most valuable thing you can do. Knocking on doors is how we pass Medicare for all. Knocking on doors is how we legalize cannabis. Knocking on doors is how we move towards racial and economic justice in the United States. But we can't do it without you. After today, we've only got 4 days until the Virginia primary. So I'm asking each and every one of you to sign up for one canvassing shift this Saturday. Volunteers in the audience, hold up your clipboards, please. Everyone, look around and try to find a volunteer with a clipboard. These are the people you need to talk to today to sign up to knock doors with us. Knocking doors is how we get Bernie on the ballot, and knocking doors is how we beat Trump this November.
I'll take that. You done? Thank you.
Welcome next to the stage, Charlottesville City Council member and co-founder of Indivisible Charlottesville, Michael Payne.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Payne, recently elected to Charlottesville City Council, and more importantly, a community organizer. There's a narrative of Charlottesville that most people know. The narrative of a white supremacist terrorist attack which a racist demagogue of a president refused to condemn. But there's another narrative of Charlottesville as well, one that does not get told as often. The narrative of the organizers who came together to directly confront and stop the rise of violent white supremacy in our country. The multiracial movement which has demanded that we not only remove Confederate statues, but we remove the racist statutes and policies that uphold the legacy of white supremacy, institutional racism, and classism in our community. The movement that has demanded policy change, including expanding our public housing, divesting from fossil fuels, becoming carbon neutral, creating a civilian police review board, and challenging corporate capitalism through co-ops and community wealth building. And what we have found is that while we can create change to strike at the roots of these issues, we need an ally in the White House, an organizer-in-chief in the White House. Someone willing to stand with us and fight for Medicare for all, a Green New Deal, a homes guarantee, investment in public housing, and investment in a just transition away from the fossil fuel economy. And in Charlottesville, we have found that we need to scale up our movements and connect our movements in Charlottesville with movements in Richmond and Roanoke and Harrisonburg and Arlington and every county and city in this state. And that once we unite our movements in Virginia, we need to join with movements in New York and West Virginia and Kentucky and Kansas and California and every state in this country to demand from every member of Congress, every senator in the White House, fundamental change, a political revolution. And I'll end with this. The reason that I am here this afternoon is the same reason that each and every one of you are here. Because you see in yourselves, in your families, and your communities that every single day that goes by where we do not challenge and change the status quo means homelessness. It means rationing insulin and medicine. It means choosing between rent and health care. It means being trapped in generational poverty. It means being trapped in cages, whether it be in a detention center or a state prison. And when it comes to the issue of climate change in our environment, it means that the basic ability of our human species to thrive on this planet is under threat. Which is why I am so proud to join all of you today and the millions of people across this country who are building the movement to elect Bernie Sanders as the next president of the United States and the first organizer-in-chief of the United States. Thank you.
Luis Aguilar is the director of Casa in Action and a forever community organizer. Put your hands together.
Buenas tardes. When they told me I was going to speak, I did not know I was going to get this nervous. But I'm not nervous because today we're going to make history. Tuesday we're going to make history. And it will be all of you making history. I will speak fast because I will speak in English and Spanish. This message is about courage, because it takes courage for Bernie Sanders to run, to take on the establishment. It doesn't take courage to think of a revolution, but it takes courage to transform a society. This same message is the message that we live. We who are undocumented, we who are illegalized in this society, we who have the courage to come out of the shadows, we who are here with Cast in Action fighting every single day. Because it took courage to cross that desert in Arizona when I was 10 years old. But this is a movement of courage. All of you are reflective of that. We are transforming an old Democratic Party into a brave, new Democratic Party. Full of young people, Latinos, African Americans, Asians, Muslim voters. But if there's something that I've learned, is that you cannot do it alone. Not me, us. And this is why I'm here to call on every single one of you. It is your duty to fight every single day to get Bernie Sanders elected and to make this transformation happen. Long is the day in which immigration reform is radical. Long is the day in which healthcare for all is radical. Long is the day in which increasing the minimum wage to $15 is radical. Long is the day in which fighting for justice is radical. So my message to you, Virginia, is the future is in your hands. El mensaje para Virginia es el futuro está en tus manos. Nosotros como comunidad latina, nosotros como comunidad estamos luchando para la transformación de esta nación y aquí estamos luchando todos los días porque una reforma migratoria, el cuidado de salud, el incremento del salario mínimo, aquí especialmente en Virginia, donde hay un partido demócrata viejo, tenemos que mandar el mensaje que este es un nuevo partido y vamos a luchar para transformar esta nación y vamos a hacer historia con el futuro presidente Bernie Sanders. We're going to make history with the future president Bernie Sanders. Thank you all.
Our very next speaker was the first Latina elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. Let's have a warm welcome for Delegate Elizabeth Guzman.
Good afternoon, Richmond. Are you guys feeling the burn? I'm Delegate Elizabeth Guzman. I proudly represent the 31st District of the House of Delegates. And we recently in Virginia won the majority in the House of Delegates and the State Senate because many of you came out to support us. And when people ask us what was our progressive agenda to win the majority, we fought in increasing the minimum wage. We were talking about common sense gun reform. We were talking about investing millions of dollars in public education. And we talk about expanding Medicaid that has provided health insurance to more than 400,000 Virginians. In 2016, I was a state delegate for the senator. And like many elected officials across this country that have been elected for city council, school board, local government, state senate, the state house, I was inspired by the senator and his message to run for office. And when people told me that I couldn't do this, that Virginia wasn't ready for a brown person, that Virginia wasn't ready for an immigrant, you came out and told them that that was incorrect. after 26 years, I flipped my seat red to blue. So now, I was elected as the Virginia co-chair, which is a privilege and an honor to get this role. It's a dream come true. And within the last week, I've been asked the electability of Bernie, of whether or not he's gonna get elected. And this is my answer to them. We believed in Bernie 40 years ago. He had a consistent message of progress. We had a base here in Virginia in 2016 that believed in his message and voted for him, despite the establishment against us. So we had a base, and now we're expanding our base, like the way we did it, like the way my colleagues here, Lee Carton and Abraham Samira, we inspire new young voters. We inspire new young voters to get out to vote. Those young voters who believe that college is for all and not only for those privileged. Your wealth should not determine whether you should go to college or not. Getting into a loan of 30 years shouldn't determine whether you have to go to college. And that's why young voters are coming out in masses to vote for Bernie. What about the people of color? Those Latinos, Muslim, African Americans that are being profiled on this criminal justice system. And Bernie is ready to reform this system, that because our elected officials have not been working on this in the White House, he's not ready to reform the criminal justice system. He's getting ready to transform our criminal justice system. What about those new Americans that are coming out to get out to vote, those immigrants that have registered to vote? Bernie has said that dreamers are Americans. Bernie has said that day one he will provide a path to citizenship to dreamers. And path to citizenship to those immigrants, 11 million, who are behaving according to the law, are paying taxes, and they will become citizens of the United States under Bernie Sanders' administration. So when people tell me that Bernie is not electable, I will tell them that is not true. He is the front runner. He has won Iowa. He has won New Hampshire. He has won Nevada. And we are getting ready to deliver Virginia to Bernie Sanders. So without further ado, let me introduce you the man of the hour. A man who have fought for those individuals So let me introduce to the next President of the United States, Senator Bernie Sanders.
Unbelievable. Richmond, thank you so much. In case you didn't notice it, there are a lot of people in this room. And to the folks who couldn't get in, thank you also for showing up today. Let me thank the Lucy Dacus Band for their music. Let me thank the No BS Brass Band. Let me thank Ollie Croft. Let me thank Councilman Michael Payne for his remarks. Let me thank Luis Aguilar for his remarks. And let me thank Elizabeth Guzman for her impassioned remarks. We're here today for two reasons. Number one, together, we will defeat the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. And we are going to defeat Trump because the American people understand we cannot continue to have in office somebody who is a pathological liar. Somebody who is running a corrupt administration. Somebody who apparently has never read the Constitution of the United States. And somebody who every day, with his attacks on Congress, attacks on the media, attacks on the judiciary, is moving this country into an autocratic type society. Trump, you're not going to get away with it. We're going to defeat you. And we're going to defeat Trump because every president, no matter whether they have been conservative or progressive, has understood that when you reach the Oval Office, your job as president is to bring people together as Americans. But this president, in an unprecedented way, is trying to divide our people up based on the color of their skin, where they were born, their sexual orientation, their religion, their gender. Donald Trump, we are all Americans. You're not going to succeed in dividing us up. And it gives me no pleasure to tell you this. It really does not. But the sad truth is that we have a president today who is a racist, who is a sexist, who is a homophobe, who is a xenophobe, who is a religious bigot. And no matter what your political views may be, progressive, conservative, moderate, you understand that is not somebody who deserves re-election. But not only is Trump a pathological liar, he is a fraud. Some of you will remember that when Trump ran for president, he said, I am going to provide health care to everybody. He lied. We managed to stop him because he was trying to throw 32 million Americans off the health care they already have. When Trump ran for president, he said, my tax plan is not going to benefit wealthy people like me. It's going to benefit working people. He lied. 83% of the benefits of Trump's tax proposal over a 10-year period goes to the top 1%. When Trump ran for president, he said, hey, I'm a different type of Republican. I'm not going to cut Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security. He lied. Take a look at the budgets that he prepared, and you will find that he proposed massive cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Now, Donald Trump wants us to hate the undocumented. That's what he does. But Donald Trump, before he was president, he loved the undocumented. He hired hundreds of them at his resorts in order to exploit them and pay them low wages. Donald Trump thinks that the outsourcing of good-paying American jobs is a bad idea. But as a private businessman, he had factories in China, in Turkey, in Bangladesh, in Mexico, and India, paying workers low wages. And the reason we are going to defeat Trump is the American people do not like frauds. And the reason that the American people are going to reject Donald Trump is they're looking around them and they're seeing a reality that they don't like. They're seeing today 3 people in America owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. They are seeing more income and wealth inequality in America today than at any time in the last 100 years. They're seeing tax breaks for billionaires, while 500,000 Americans, including 30,000 veterans who put their lives on the line to defend us, are sleeping out on the streets of America. Trump says that we have a booming economy. Tell that to the half of American people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Tell that to the people in Virginia or Vermont who cannot afford the outrageous cost of health care. But it's not only a rigged economy in which over the last 30 years, the top 1% has seen a $21 trillion increase in their wealth, while the bottom half have seen a decline in their wealth. It is also, on top of a rigged economy, it is a corrupt political system. And the American people are tired of billionaires, whether it's Michael Bloomberg or anyone else, trying to buy elections. Bloomberg has every right in the world to run for president, but he doesn't have the right to buy the presidency. And that is why the American people across the political spectrum understand that we have got to overturn this disastrous Supreme Court decision on Citizens United. Why we have to move to public funding of elections. And why we must end voter suppression in this country. You know, it really does astound me in terms of the cowardice of so many of these Republican governors and attorneys general. You see, they don't have the guts to run on their ideas, because their ideas are anathema to the American people. Their ideas are give more tax breaks to billionaires, cut Social Security, cut Medicare, cut education, cut Medicaid. Half of these people don't even understand that climate change is real. So they can't run on their ideas. And if you can't run on your ideas, how do you win an election? You make it impossible for people who will vote against you to participate in the political process. So together in the White House, we are going to end voter suppression. We want this country to have the highest voter turnout rate of any major country, not one of the lowest. If you are 18 years of age in America, you are going to have the right to vote. End of discussion. And we're going to win this election. We're going to win the Democratic nomination. We're going to beat Trump for several reasons. Number one, we have the strongest grassroots movement of any campaign. Our volunteers have already knocked all over this country on millions of doors. They have made many millions of phone calls. They're active on social media. And at the end of the day, television ads, they're important. Radio ads, they're important. But what is far more important is a strong grassroots movement of working people. That's what we have. And what our campaign is building is the strongest multi-generational, I'm the young guy, we got some old people too, multi-generational, multi-racial grassroots movement this country has ever seen. And we're going to win the nomination and we're going to defeat Trump because we are going to bring new people into the political process. There are a lot of working people in Virginia, in Vermont, and all over this country. They're working 2 or 3 jobs. They can't afford the basic necessities of life. And they say, does anybody care about what's going on in my life? Does anybody know what's going on in my life? And they don't vote. Well, we do care about what's going on in their life. We know what's going on in their life. We're going to bring them into the political process. And the other reason that we are going to defeat Trump is that young people are going to play a more profound role in this election than in any election in history. The young generation in America today, and everybody should be proud of this, young generation is the most progressive young generation in the history of America. This is a generation that is anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobe, anti-xenophobe, anti-religious bigotry. In fact, they are anti-everything that Trump is for. And our job is to get young people involved in the political process, and that is beginning to happen. If young people vote at the same level as people 65 or older, not only will we defeat Trump in a landslide, we will transform America. And that's what we've got to do. So I say to the young people here, don't complain about your student debt. Don't complain about climate change. Don't complain about racism or sexism or homophobia. Your complaints don't mean anything. What means something is standing up and fighting and getting involved in the political process. Now, as I think many of you know, the success of our campaigns, we won the popular vote in Iowa. We won the New Hampshire primary. We won the Nevada caucus. That is getting the establishment very, very nervous. And they're staying up days and nights trying to figure out how they can stop us. And when they see a turnout like this, they get even more nervous. And one of their lines of argument is they say, well, you know, Bernie may be a nice guy, he may not be a nice guy, but you know what? He can't defeat Donald Trump. Well, I say to those people, hey, take a look at the last 50 national polls that have been done. We beat Trump. We defeat Trump 47 out of 50 times. Including here in Virginia. And take a look at some of the major battleground states, states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. We defeat Trump. And I'll say this. The way we defeat Trump is by bringing forth the largest voter turnout in the history of this country. That's what you need to beat Trump. And in my view, you don't do that with the same old style of politics. That is not going to bring young people and working class people into the political process. Now, my good friend, Joe Biden, who I have a lot of respect for, Joe is not going to bring new people into the political process when people know that he voted for the war in Iraq. Not going to create excitement among working people when they learn that he voted for an awful bankruptcy bill. Not going to bring new people into the political process when they learn that he voted for trade agreements like NAFTA and PNTR with China, which cost us millions of good-paying jobs. Not going to bring people into the political process or the Democratic Party when they learn that he stood on the floor of the Senate time and time again, talking about the need to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. The way we defeat Trump is with a vibrant, energized grassroots movement and an agenda that speaks to the needs of the working class in this country. And that is what our campaign is about. And here is something that I know all of you understand. You understand that real change never, ever takes place from the top on down. All right? Real change always takes place from the bottom on up when millions of people stand together for justice. And that is what this campaign is about. It's about a justice campaign. You know, the other day, some of you may have seen I was involved in a so-called debate on CBS. And I had to duck and weave because things would be thrown at me, you know. But that debate was not really a serious discussion about serious issues. That is reality TV type stuff. And what real politics is about, you know, it's not attacking somebody, it's not a 3-second zinger, and it's not all that stuff. What it's about, honestly, it's not complicated. It's about taking a hard look at where we are as a nation, trying to figure out how we got to where we are, and then figuring out where we want to go as a people. That's about it. It's about looking at the real issues facing real people. Not gotcha questions, not terrible attacks, not personal attacks. It's just looking where the American people are at. So right now, our campaign, I've been all over this country, and I've talked to worker after worker who cannot make it on $8 an hour, $9 an hour, $10 an hour. Half of the people. Look, I grew up in a working class family. My family lived paycheck to paycheck. My parents used to argue all of the time about money, money, money. Always stress in my family, as there is in your families. All right, half of the people in this country worry that if their car breaks down and you need $500 to get the car fixed, if you're rich, hey, $500, get the car. Hey, let's use deal. Let's get the other car, or maybe the third car. Not a problem. But if you got one car and no money and it breaks down, you know what? You got a problem. And if you don't have $500 to get the car fixed, you can't get to work. And if you can't get to work, you get fired. And if you get fired, you don't have a paycheck to take care of your family. That's living under stress. Living under stress and living paycheck to paycheck is, oh my God, my kid is sick. I don't have the money to take my kid to the doctor. That's living under stress. So we believe that in America, the richest country on earth, that if you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty. Now, a lot of my critics, a lot of the Democratic opponents, Bernie is so radical. I don't think it is radical to say that all of our working people have a right to live with dignity and security. Ain't radical. 4 years ago, when I campaigned in Virginia, they said raising that minimum wage to $15 too extreme. Well, since then, 7 states have raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour. And as president, we will make certain that the federal minimum wage in every state in this country is $15 an hour. The American people are tired of women earning 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. We believe in equal pay for equal work. Millions of workers in this country want to join unions. They understand that when they're in a union, they can engage in collective bargaining, get decent wages, decent benefits. We are going to double trade union membership in this country. We are going to create millions of good-paying jobs, union jobs, rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure. We're going to put workers back to work at good wages, building the 10 million units of low-income and affordable housing this country desperately needs. All over this country, you're seeing people spending 40, 50% of their incomes on housing. They're being driven out of the communities they grew up in because of gentrification. So we're telling the landlords of this country, stop jacking up rents. And we're going to win this election because the American people understand that we need to change our national priorities and put education at the top of the list. What this campaign is about is asking people to think outside of the box, to ask questions that are not asked in Congress, not asked by the corporate media. How does it happen, for example, that in a wealthy country like the United States, we have a horrific and dysfunctional child care system? How does it happen that millions of working class families cannot find quality, affordable child care for their kids? We're going to change that. We believe in universal, high-quality, affordable child care for all families. We believe that all of our kids deserve a quality education regardless of the zip code in which they live. And that means tripling funding for low-income Title I schools. And I'll tell you what it also means when we change our value system and change our priorities. If we believe in education, we believe in educators and teachers. All over the country right now, you're seeing teachers with 10, 20 years experience, great teachers, leaving education because they can't make a living. You're seeing young people who would love to be teachers not going into teaching because the salaries are just too low. We understand that there are no more important jobs than educating our kids. And that is why we're going to fight to raise the salary of teachers in this country to at least $60,000 a year. And I want the young people here, to know this country desperately needs great teachers. We need great African American teachers. We need Latino teachers. We need special ed teachers. We need, as a nation, to respect education and educators, and that is what we intend to do. And when we talk about education, we understand that over the last 100 years, the world has changed. The economy, technology have changed. Public education from K through 12 is no longer good enough. We need to make our public colleges and universities tuition free. And I'm happy to tell you, we're making progress in that area. State after state, community after community is moving in that direction. Together, we're going to do it for every state in this country. And I'll tell you something else. And this is, again, thinking outside of the box, thinking about a government that represents workers, not billionaires. And what that means, I want you to think about it. 12 years ago, the Congress, against my vote, chose to bail out the crooks on Wall Street who nearly destroyed our economy. 2 years ago, Trump and his friends gave $1 trillion in tax breaks to large, profitable corporations and the 1%. Well, if Congress could bail out crooks and give tax breaks to billionaires, we can cancel all student debt in America. Together, we are going to have the courage to take on the insurance companies, to take on the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. Together, we are going to end the international embarrassment of the United States being the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. Now, I live in Burlington, Vermont, and come on up and visit us. And I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. And somehow in Canada, they manage and have for decades managed to provide health care to all of their people. So that in Canada, you go to any doctor you want, you don't take out your wallet, you don't take out your credit card. And in Canada and in countries all over the world, if you end up with a serious illness and you end up in the hospital for a month, you know what your bill is when you come out? Zero. And here is what is incredible. What the Canadians are able to do, what Europeans are able to do, what the Scandinavians are able to do, is provide health care to all of their people at half the cost per capita that we spend. So today in America, we are spending double what other countries are spending, about $11,000. Can you imagine it? For every man, woman, and child. A huge sum of money. And yet, despite this huge expenditure, we have 87 million people who are either completely uninsured or are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments. We have at least, and this is, I believe, a conservative number, and I want you to hear this, 30,000 people minimum die each year because they don't get to a doctor on time. Okay? They can't afford health care, they can't afford prescription drugs, and they unnecessarily die. We in America pay by far, not even close, the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. A few months ago, it's about half a year ago, I went to Canada from the Midwest. I went with a group of diabetics who use insulin. And we went a few miles into Canada. We were able to buy the same exact insulin product in Canada for 1/10 of the price sold in the United States. We have a pharmaceutical industry which is not only greedy, they are corrupt. They are engaged in price fixing and collusion. Well, we say to the pharmaceutical industry, your corruption, your collusion, your greed is about to end. On the Medicare for all, what we will do is eliminate all premiums for workers and their employers. Premiums gone. We end all co-payments so you can walk into the doctor's office. You don't have to pay $50 or $100. We end the absurd, insane concept of a deductible. We end all out-of-pocket expenses. And because we're going to lower drug prices in America, nobody will have to pay more than $200 a year for the prescription drugs they need. We are going to expand Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, eyeglasses, and home health care. There are millions of people who would prefer to stay in their homes rather than go into a nursing home, and they have that right. Last year, while so many of our people are uninsured or underinsured, the healthcare industry made $100 billion in profits. And today we say to that industry, the function of a rational and humane healthcare system is not to make billions of dollars for the industry, it is to provide quality care for all. And whether the insurance companies like it or not, and whether the drug companies like it or not, the United States will join every other major country on earth and pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. We have a president who embarrasses us every day. It's hard to keep up with his tweets. But in terms of climate change, he endangers not only our country, but the entire world. Donald Trump thinks that climate change is a hoax. I believe that Donald Trump is a hoax. And are you ready? Are you ready for a radical proposition here? All right, I don't want anybody collapsing on me. Are you all ready? Brace yourself, here it comes. Our administration will believe in science. Now, I know that in some circles that is a radical idea, but hey, sometimes you got to go for it, you know? That's it. And what the scientists are telling us, to be honest with you, is pretty scary stuff. You all know that. Trump doesn't, you do. And what they are saying is that they have underestimated the speed and severity in which climate change is wreaking havoc on our country and the world. In other words, the polar ice caps are melting at a faster rate. Ocean is warming at a faster rate. Sea level is rising at a faster rate. Drought is worse than they had anticipated. Turn on the TV and watch a beautiful country like Australia burn, go up in flames. And if we don't get our act together, that is going to be taking place all over the world. Understand that the oceans are becoming more acidic, which means that people who depend upon fish for their protein will not have access to that fish. Understand there will be more extreme weather disturbances, torrential rain, and flooding. Understand that the United Nations is telling us that if we don't get our act together by the end of the century, there could be hundreds of millions of climate refugees. People unable to live in their communities because there's no drinking water, no land in which they can grow their crops. And when millions of people migrate, that causes international tension and war. So what we have got to do is understand that we are in an existential crisis. We are fighting for the future of this planet. Now, I've got 4 kids and 7 grandchildren, and we have got to make sure that our kids and future generations have a planet that is healthy and habitable. That's what we're fighting for. And this is a moral responsibility. And I am proud to tell you that we have introduced the most sweeping climate change proposal ever introduced by any candidate for federal office. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal. And it will create up to 20 million good-paying union jobs as we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency. But climate change is, as all of you know, it is not just an American issue. It is a global issue impacting every country on earth. As president, my job will be to reach out to the people in China, in India, in Pakistan, in Brazil, throughout Africa, throughout Latin America, and make the case that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, maybe, just maybe, we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. When we talk about an agenda that is long overdue in this country, it is an agenda that says we need fundamental reform to a broken and racist criminal justice system. This is an issue we cannot continue to ignore. Today in America, we have more people in jail, over 2 million people, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native American, more people in jail than any other country on earth, including China, which is an authoritarian country 4 times our size. So what we are going to do, for a start, is to invest in our young people in jobs and education, not more jails and incarceration. It costs more money to lock somebody up and destroy that life than it is to send that person to the University of Virginia. Let's get more people into university, fewer people in jail. Today, 400,000 Americans right now, this moment, are in jail having been convicted of nothing. They are in jail because they are poor and cannot afford bail. We're going to end cash bail. We are going to end private prisons and detention centers. And I'll tell you what else we're going to do. We're going to end the destructive war on drugs. There are some things a president can do through executive order. There are other things you need legislation. Turns out that one of the things you could do with executive order is legalize marijuana in every state in the country. Now let me ask you all a question. See, when I'm in the South, I get into y'all. Not quite a Vermont colloquialism, but let me ask you a question. How many folks here know somebody who has been arrested for possession of marijuana? This is what the war on drugs has done to this country. And that is why we're going to move forward to expunge the records of those arrested for possession of marijuana. And when we talk about broken systems and racist systems, we know that our immigration system needs fundamental reform. And on a very busy day one, I think it's going to be a long day, we're going to sign an executive order that ends all of Trump's racist immigration executive orders. And as the son of an immigrant, I take this issue personally. On day one, we will restore the legal status of the 1.8 million young people who are eligible for the DACA program. On day one, we end a border policy which has allowed federal agents to snatch tiny babies from the arms of their mothers. That's not America. And our administration will accomplish what should have been done decades ago, and that is to bring forth bipartisan, comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship for all the undocumented. Now, I know that this state and states all over this country have seen horrible, horrible gun incidents, mass slaughters. And let me just say this. Our gun policy will be determined by the American people, for the American people, not by the NRA. The American people, whether they live in rural states like mine or urban states, whether they are gun owners or non-gun owners, they understand we need universal, expanded background checks. People who have a history of violence, including domestic violence, should not be owning guns. The American people know that we need to end the gun show loophole and the so-called straw man provision. And the American people know today something that I have fought for some 30 years, and that we must end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. Now, as a United States Senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate, and I hear from many conservative Republicans who go forth with their mantra, which is they believe in small government and they believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people. And I say to those hypocrites, if you believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, understand that it is women who have the right to control their own bodies, not the government. And by the way, let me speak to the men who are in the room right now. And that is, guys, the women of this country today are under a severe political attack. Stand with the women. And I promise you that I will never nominate anybody to the Supreme Court or the federal bench who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. We will move aggressively to codify, put into law Roe v. Wade. Trump and his friends want to cut funding for Planned Parenthood. Bad idea. We are going to significantly increase funding for Planned Parenthood. So here we are in Richmond with a major primary taking place on Tuesday. And this primary takes place in the midst of the most consequential and important election in the modern history of America. So I am asking of all of you, please come out to vote. Please bring your friends and your neighbors and your co-workers out to vote. Let us have the largest voter turnout in the history of the Virginia primary. Let us win here in Virginia. Let us win the Democratic nomination. Let us defeat Donald Trump. And let us together create an economy and a government that works for all, not just wealthy campaign contributors. Thank you all very much.